The year 2100. Your body remains on Earth, connected to a machine that keeps it alive just enough. But you are on Mars. You've rented a better body, stronger, faster, immune to illness. Everything works as long as you can pay. Because the moment you stop, the system stops recognizing you as human. And what happens next never appears in the Aura Travels ads. The year 2100. The first Aura Travels laboratory was established in Africa. They didn't announce what they were building. They simply showed the result. A person walking on Mars without ever having left Earth. The technology was called connectomy transmission. It wasn't a miracle. It was particle engineering applied to the spirit. We had learned to separate hardware from software, and for the first time, the software was free. A system capable of scanning your entire brain, every memory, every impulse, every decision that defines you. Everything became data, a file, your consciousness, compressed. That file was sent at the speed of light, and at the destination, they weren't waiting for you. They were manufacturing you. A shell, a biological body designed to withstand what yours couldn't. Toxic atmospheres, extreme gravity, impossible temperatures. When the transfer was complete, you opened your eyes, and you were still you, or so you thought. Aura Travels didn't sell trips. It sold access to shells, rented bodies, engineered experiences. Temporary identities. Your real body stayed on Earth, motionless, plugged into life support, waiting. The launch was immediate. Mars, Titan, Europa. Destinations that once took years were now just seconds away. The only condition was to accept that the body you used was never yours. The real change didn't happen in the labs. It happened when people started traveling. And what they found was unlike anything they had ever experienced before. It wasn't a simulation, nor was it an experience mediated by a screen. It was direct presence in another place, with a continuity that the brain accepted without resistance. Mars was the first destination that changed everything. It ceased to be a distant reference and became a recognizable place, a space you could explore, and from which you returned with memories that fit perfectly with your own memory. Then others followed. Titan, with its dense, opaque atmosphere. Europa, where ice covered everything and sound seemed to disappear. The motivation was no longer about discovery. It became about staying power. The first time made an impact. The second time solidified the experience. From there on, the benchmark shifted, and everything else began to be measured against what you had experienced there. In a very short time, demand stopped growing out of interest and began to be sustained by habit. Aura travels didn't need to accelerate the process. The user's own behavior made it inevitable. That access, however, was never the same for everyone. From the start, travel beyond Earth remained in the hands of a minority. Not for lack of technology, because of cost. Maintaining a stable connection for hours or days in distant environments. Was something only a few could sustain indefinitely. The rest weren't left out of the system, but they didn't have the same access either. While the elite crossed planets, the rest remained here. They changed bodies. They moved. They did things their original bodies couldn't sustain for very long. Staying underwater, traveling through extreme environments, accessing areas where risk no longer mattered. It wasn't the same as being outside, but it wasn't staying put either. They couldn't choose just any destination. They couldn't stay as long as they wanted. Their access had limits, and those limits weren't technical. They were economic. Over time, the difference stopped being measured in destinations. It was measured in duration, in how long you could stay inside, before the system decided for you. In its early years, Aura travels developed within a very specific environment. It wasn't about scale. It was about perfection. Every trip was a test. Every body, a prototype. The goal wasn't just to go further. It was to see how far the experience could be sustained without breaking it. And it was during that process that the focus began to shift. The destination still mattered, but it ceased to be the only thing that defined the trip. The shell began to take on importance. It wasn't the same to arrive as it was to be able to stay. Little by little, the focus shifted away from just where you were going and began to shift toward the shell you would occupy upon arrival. There were shells designed for extreme environments, capable of adapting to conditions that no human organism could have endured for more than a few seconds. Others were designed to intensify perception, to amplify every stimulus until the experience became almost addictive. Difficult to compare to any sensation in the real world. There were also shells designed for social interaction, optimized in every detail. From facial structure to voice modulation, following patterns that guaranteed a positive response in almost any human context. And then there were the versions that didn't appear in the ads, the ones that existed only for certain clients. Bodies designed without practical constraints, without the need to conform to any known standard. Built solely to offer an experience that the original body could never achieve. Aura Travels understood something that no one had articulated so clearly until that moment. The body was no longer an essential part of identity. It was an interface, something you chose, used, and left behind. And with each new version, with each improvement, with each experience more intense than the last, the gap between who you were and who you could become became increasingly difficult to ignore. Because in the end, the real change wasn't technological. It was psychological. People stopped wanting to travel to discover other places. They began to do it, to escape from themselves. For a long time, no one considered what happened when the experience ended. The system ran smoothly, transfers were stable, and customers returned with memories that seemed intact. Everything was designed to make the process seamless. Until the first glitches began to appear. They weren't technical errors. They were interruptions. Users who didn't complete the return process, transfers that remained on hold longer than expected, contracts that for some reason ceased to be active in the middle of an experience. That was when it became clear how the system really worked. Aura Travels didn't offer a complete trip. It offered temporary access. Each connection had an assigned time, each body an availability, each user a status within the system: active, in transit, suspended. And when the state changed, everything changed with it. There were documented cases of users who lost control of the shell while they were still inside it. The experience didn't stop immediately. It simply stopped responding. The environment was still there. The body was too. But it no longer belonged to them. Others never managed to disconnect. Their data remained trapped in the system with no processing priority, no assigned return route. And on Earth, their original bodies remained on standby, connected to systems that reduced activity to the bare minimum necessary to preserve them. Over time, maintaining those bodies ceased to be profitable. There was no announcement. There was no official change in the terms of service. Just a silent update. From that moment on, the user's continuity depended exclusively on their ability to keep the contract active. And when that ceased to happen, the system simply kept running. those who returned didn't come back the same. There was no visible sign. There was no specific moment when everything changed. Just a feeling. The original body was still there, exactly where you'd left it. But after having lived in something designed to perform better, returning to that body felt like putting on wet clothes. Slower, clumsier, more fragile, as if reality had lost its resolution. At first it was discomfort, then it turned into rejection, then into obsession. People stopped wanting to leave the system. More and more time spent connected, fewer and fewer reasons to return, because inside, everything fit together better. Emotions were sharper. Sensations felt more real than reality itself. And outside, everything seemed like a faded version of something you'd already experienced. Some began skipping payments, ignoring contracts, thinking they could stay indefinitely. The system had an answer for that. It didn't kick you out. It didn't send you back to your body. It downgraded you. The shell you'd been using disappeared, and in its place, another one arrived. More basic, more limited. A second-rate body to remind you exactly where you were. And your original body, that one remained held captive, on standby. Connected to the bare minimum needed to keep you alive. Not as a system error, as a clause in the contract. You could get it back. You just had to pay what you owed. And until you did, your body was still there. Breathing just enough, existing at a bare minimum, gradually turning into something you would no longer recognize as yours. And in the meantime, you, trapped in a disposable shell, kept longing to return to what you had once had. Not to your life, not to your body, to the version of yourself that only existed when you paid. Because by then, Aura Travels no longer managed trips. It managed dependency. For years, the question was the same. What happens when you stop paying? But that was never the right question. The right question was something else. What exactly comes back? Because the system never moved your body. It moved your data. And every time you traveled, that data was read, organized, and reconstructed elsewhere with enough precision that no one could tell it apart from you. You had the same memories, the same way of speaking, the same decisions. Everything fit. But that didn't prove it was you. It only proved you were identical. No one could confirm what happened to the original at the moment of scanning, whether it continued to exist, whether it was suspended, or whether it simply ceased to be necessary the very moment the copy began to function. For a long time, that doubt didn't matter. The system worked, and as long as it worked, no one had any real reason to question it. Because the experience was perfect, and the return seemed complete. Until the first anomalies began to appear, they weren't visible glitches. They were small inconsistencies. People who remembered conversations they had never had. Details of trips that didn't quite match up. Sensations of having been in places that, in theory, were not part of their history. At first, they were dismissed as memory errors, system fatigue, statistical noise. But over time, the patterns began to repeat. Too many coincidences. Too many memories that didn't fit into a single timeline, as if the same person were accumulating experiences that hadn't happened in the same version of themselves. As if there weren't a single continuity, but several. And that was when someone asked the question no one had wanted to ask. If every time you travel the system has to rebuild you, if every experience depends on a new instance that picks up where the previous one left off, how many versions of you have already existed without you knowing it? And which of them do you think you are now? The best bodies were never listed in the public catalog. They were always reserved for the elite. While the system opened up to the general market, a small group of clients had been using bodies for decades that didn't appear on any list. Bodies constructed from human biological tissue. Not synthetic, not designed from scratch. Taken. The process was simple. A user with an active contract and insufficient funds entered a suspended state. Their consciousness remained trapped within the system. And their original body became available, not as a life support system, as raw material. It was optimized. It was reinforced. It was prepared for another occupant, someone who paid enough not to ask where it came from. No one called it theft. The contract provided for it. Page 61, Clause 9. In the event of prolonged suspension, Aura Travels reserves the right to reassign the original biological substrate to ensure the operational continuity of the system. Operational continuity. Those two words were worth more than 2 billion bodies. and the rich who inhabited them lived longer. They aged more slowly. They occupied young bodies when their own began to deteriorate. There was always a new suspended contract waiting. There was always someone who couldn't pay on time. The system was never in short supply.